Comedian Sam McCool has performed all over the world. During his travels, he's experienced many cultures and many different political environments, and all of this helps to provide him with material. Welcome, Sam.
Oh, thank you, Beck.
It's good to see you.
Thank you, Sam.
Now, you spend a lot of your time performing on cruise ships. What's that experience like?
Well, it's free of international borders for a start, so that's good. It's not free of international time zones, which is restrictive, I find, but sometimes you get an extra hour sleep, sometimes you lose an hour. So
you've been to some amazing places. Where have you travelled?
I have. I just got back. This sounds so terrible. I just got back from Barbados, Curacao, Colombia, and Costa Rica.
Oh, what a terrible life you lead.
It's
what a horrible life.
Very happy to be back here in Sydney, though.
Yeah, what's it like coming back once you've been away for a while?
Well, I don't go away for that long, but it's, it makes you appreciate what you got at home, and it makes you appreciate what you've got away.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Try to take the best out of both worlds.
And is it a bit of a, we've just been talking about being on your own and whether you enjoy it or not. Does
this
it get
is a single show now.
Yeah, that's right. Does it get a bit lonely when you're on the cruise ships?
Well, I am my best company. I have the most interesting conversations with myself. It comes from being a Gemini, I think. You just talk this, used to that. Look, some people hate that. Some people can't do anything on their own, but I think if you travel a lot, you've got to make friends with yourself and enjoy it.
Fantastic. And so you are, I've got to ask this question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think people around the world have the same sense of humour? Do you think what's funny, say here in Sydney, for example, or down in Melbourne or wherever you are, do you think it's the same thing in Costa Rica?
No,
apart from the language barrier, obviously.
No, they've definitely got their Sydney-Melbourne vibe in Costa Rica. All those latte sipping people from San Jose are different from those coastal people in the village. Look, yes or no. So I think on a base level, we all laugh at the same things, or, the slapstick kind of thing, or that element. If you look at those cat videos on YouTube, we all laugh at that same basic stuff, and maybe Kardashians. But on a more highbrow level, no, we obviously have different sort of things. I mean, it's not that we laugh at different things, it's just that we are cognizant of different things. So we actually get certain things here that they wouldn't get in New Zealand, say. Sorry to pick on New Zealanders, but and vice versa, or the US or whatever. Like, I think Americans have a different sense of humour than Australians, and Brits have a slightly different sense of humour. So there are subtleties, yeah.
Do you think it's important for a comic wherever they travel to find those local references?
Yeah. I know. I actually did a gig last year. I'm now bragging, but
brag away.
Thank you. In Rio de Janeiro, with a comedian called Marcus Ryan, if you're listening, who's an Australian comedian from Melbourne. And they didn't get any of his jokes because he's from Melbourne, and they loved the Sydney stuff. No, anyway, no, not quite, But, it was great to just have that experience where he'd been traveling through South America for 8-9 months, had a lot of local references between different nationalities, culture. I'd been in Brazil for all of about 2 days and had to pick up things really quickly that they would get a reference to. But, yeah, it's hard. It's much harder work if you try and do local references, or if you talk about global stuff like, Trump or, Putin or Brexit or whatever, then people tend to be more aware, yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned the political side of things, because you're doing a new show as part of the Sydney Comedy Festival, and it's called Politricks.
Yes.
And so
I thought that was original, but then I really did. I thought, what a brilliant name. I only created the show because of the title, and then I looked it up later, which is a bad mistake, and realised it's some kind of Jamaican reggae reference too.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, man.
Oh, see?
Politics, the politician, politic, and I let him know.
You're going to end up with a huge Jamaican audience there, possibly.
Yeah, hopefully.
Or the Jamaicans here.
Just one big guy.
That's brilliant. And so do you think that there's a general feeling around the world of the political sort of change that's happening?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, a lot of people say they're not into politics, and especially in Australia, where it really doesn't matter because we are one of the leaders in the world in many respects and have one of the best lifestyles in the world. So I think it's very easy for us in Australia to go, look, I'm not really that interested in politics. But politics affects every aspect of your life, or at least certain aspects of your life. And so, whether it's, the 457 visa coming out, or immigration rules, or whatever, I mean, that's not a daily thing, maternity leave, whatever the issues are that are coming up, it's going to affect you at some point. Thankfully in Australia, we have such a high standard of living that it's not as relevant to us on such a big basis. We won't get an Australian revolution anytime this century, I don't think. But if you look at Europe and what's going on with Brexit and France and the elections coming up in France, and it is such a relevant thing to their daily lives. And obviously in the US, where it's so divisive because, I mean, it's been such a contentious election that people do get involved and this all of a sudden getting activated, animated. So I just thought it's a good way to, to bridge comedy and politics, because it definitely there's enough comedy going on in politics that I figured there should be at least a 1 hour show.
Well, that's an interesting thing. I mean, it sort of gets to that point, I guess, where the politicians are funnier than anything a comic can ever say.
That's right, exactly. Well, some of them probably, I do think they've got writers though. I don't think they've come up with that off the cuff. But look, Obama was brilliant, wasn't he? I mean, he was such a great entertainer and such a great speech maker. But it's partly what they say, but it's also partly the joke that is politics and the joke that is. I mean, I've always found it hilarious that we have a government and then we have an opposition party. You don't have a brain surgeon, opposition brain surgeon going, "Come on, mate, it's not rocket science." Yeah. Why don't we have an opposition radio? That's probably me now. I'm the opposition party of this interview.
Yeah, that's right. Yes. That's right. I'll be ousted of the chair
That's
soon.
right, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker. Point of order, whatever.
Point of order.
But you can't. If you did that at school, they'd make you write 100 lines saying, I must not behave like a politician.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, it's fascinating, especially now with the era of Trump. I mean, I guess that there's plenty of fodder for comedians now. Let's face it. I heard the other day that somebody had said, that Trump's slogan was "Make America Great Again," and they said, but the only thing that Trump has made great again is SNL.
Right.
So that's Saturday Night Live is the only thing he's made great again, because now it's given new life to a lot of people.
Episodes.
They do.
They're doing Saturday, Sunday, and Monday
Night Live.
It's brilliant.
So it's kind of given that impetus for people to perform.
It is, and it's one thing to sort of laugh at our politicians, but when you see some of the actions they're taking, you sort of go, well, is it enough just to have a laugh at them? But I think that's a start, right? I've been watching a lot of George Carlin lately and watching how he attacks and criticises the social commentary that's infused in his comedy, and I'm very much inspired by that. Not that I'm going to do as good a job, but just infused with that sort of, being able to be topical and relevant, and also looking at it from a very sarcastic point of view.
Yeah, great. And so writing a new hour of stand-up, which is what comics...
45 minutes,
45,
Beck,
45 minutes.
You're doing the opening 15, you know that, right?
I better get writing.
I'm allowing 5 minutes to sign autographs and sell DVDs, but so it's basically down to 40 minutes, and then 10 minutes...
And get a drink. Go and get a drink. That's 10.
There'll be a halftime break with oranges, so that's
20. So the 15 minutes that you're writing.
yeah, that's right.
But comics people, I don't think a lot of people realise that stand-ups, when it comes to festival season in particular, they're writing a new hour, 45 to an hour, per year.
Yes.
And that's difficult. What's your writing process like?
Oh, that's a very good question. I saw this image that, how Facebook reminds you of things you posted the year before. So
yes.
Last year I posted this image of an iceberg that, just one of those memes on Facebook, but an iceberg where you see that top 10%, 90% below the water. Well, that's pretty much what you see. When you go and see a show, you're seeing that top 10% that's hopefully refined and polished and whatever. Yep. And there's that 90%, which is research, writing, preparation, rehearsal, and trying to get it as sleek as possible, trying to get it in your brain, which as we age is much harder. So, I'm going to be writing each gag on the foreheads of the front row of the audience and just be taking the topics off of them. But my process is very much like, you're inspired by what's going on in the world, trying to keep it topical and relevant. I try and focus on things that are relevant but not necessarily super topical, because that'll date in a month's time.
Yes.
But it is hard to write a whole new... You can write an hour, but it might not be a good hour.
Yes. And do you find that testing the material beforehand is the best way to see what it does and doesn't work?
It is the best way, depending on who you test it with and how you test it.
Right. Explain that.
Oh, okay. So if you just test it with someone who's not into politics, for example, it is all going to die. Well, not necessarily, actually, because most people are aware of what's going on.
Yeah.
I think you just got to, if you're going to test it, you've got to test it several times, and you've got to test it amongst different audiences and sufficient amount of people to get a cross-section of views.
Yes.
Because I think everybody can relate to whatever you do in the world. Somebody's got an opinion. Somebody thinks I know it's better. And so testing on one or two friends is not going to be good enough. No,
you need a room. You need a room full of people, don't you? Because let's face it, some rooms that you perform in, I'm sure that there'd be a lot of people smiling. And I've heard that, you say to audiences...
You've seen my shows every day.
But you say to audiences, I can't hear a smile. They might be enjoying it, but not necessarily laughing. It's like you need that sort of...
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
almost like something that keeps you going.
Yeah. And it's got to be punchy, and that's the thing. It's like to create... I think any upcoming comedian realize how hard it is to just make a 5-minute set when you're first starting off. Polishing it and refining it. I think it's like a statue, really. You're taking a block of wood or not a block of wood. Nobody can't. Do they come? Yeah, wood. Yeah. Wood or marble or whatever it is.
Or plasticine.
Or Play-Doh. Big in the Greek times, the old Play-Doh. Anyway, and you just shape it. You carve it out. And I think the more you perform that show, the more fine-tuned it is. So we're very lucky in Sydney that during the festival season, Most of the shows will go to Perth and Adelaide and Melbourne, and by the time they get to Sydney, they're really refined.
They are. They're pretty slick by that stage, aren't they?
Other shows, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I really hope and wish that this for you, that this one works out.
It'll be fine. I've done this before.
You've done it before.
People at home, trust me, I'm a politician at heart.
This man is a professional.
Yeah, that's right.
Fantastic. Well, Sam's new show, Politricks, love it, love the title, is on May 19 at Giant Dwarf, and it's part of the Sydney Comedy Festival. So check out the Sydney Comedy Festival website for details. Best of luck with the show, Sam.
Thank you very much. Let me just explain that Giant Dwarf is not a person, it's a venue, 199 Cleveland Street, Redfern.
That's exactly right. Brilliant.
You'll see a giant and a dwarf at the front door. They're the bouncers.
Yes, that's an oxymoron, isn't it?
It is.
Anyway, there we go. Thanks so much, Sam McCool. Oh, fantastic. And you can check out Sam, as I said, check out the Sydney Comedy Festival website for details. In fact, for any of the details for the Sydney Comedy Festival shows, that's the place to go.